A man's daughter was dying, and Jesus stopped to talk to someone else. What do you do when God doesn't move fast enough? This is part 35 of our series. We're exploring Mark chapter 5, verses 21 through 24 and 35 through 43. Look at verse 21 from the English Standard Version of the Bible. And when Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Crossed again? From where? When? The night before, Jesus and his disciples crossed from the western shore of the Sea of Galilee to the eastern shore. In the night, they were almost killed by a storm, until Jesus commanded the wind and waves to cease. In the morning, they were met by a man possessed by thousands of demons. Jesus cast them out of the man, and they slaughtered thousands of pigs. The locals, whose pigs died, asked Jesus to leave, so they headed back to the western shore. What happened when they arrived? A great crowd gathered. Where? Right there at the shore. So what? People were so interested in Jesus that the crowds gathered before he had a chance to move away from the boat. On to verses 22 and 23. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, so that she may be made well and live." A synagogue leader, a prominent man in the Jewish community, came to Jesus and fell at his feet. His name is Jairus, which comes from a Hebrew word that means light. The name Jairus means enlightened person, or God enlightens. So what? This is a dark story about a dying child. Is Jairus enlightened because he seeks out Jesus in this crisis? We'll have to see. Look at what Jairus said to Jesus. First, a fact. My little daughter is at the point of death. This father is facing an unimaginable tragedy. Second, a request. Come and lay your hands on her. You've healed others. Please come to the aid of my dying daughter. And finally, an assumption, so that she may be made well and live. Based on what he said, Jairus believes that if Jesus comes and lays hands on his dying little girl, she will not only not die, but will be made well. Jairus, enlightened by God, believes Jesus can restore his daughter to health. What did Jesus do? Look at verse 24. And he went with him, and a great crowd followed him and thronged about him. Jesus goes with Jairus, as does a great crowd, and presumably the disciples of Jesus. While on the way in this dire and urgent circumstance, Mark tells us that Jesus pauses to help an adult woman with a grown woman's health problem, which delays Jesus' arrival at Jairus' house. We will cover that delay in depth in our next video. For now, let's get back to Jairus' daughter, in verse 35. While he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" While Jesus was talking to the grown woman, people came with devastating news from Jairus' house. Jairus' daughter had died while Jesus was on his way. They say, "There's no point in Jesus coming now. It's too late. Hope is lost." Look at verse 36. But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." To whom did Jesus speak? Not the crowd, not the messengers. He spoke to the man whose faith made him seek Jesus' help. Do not fear, only believe. He came to Jesus because he feared for his daughter and believed Jesus could help. Now his daughter is dead, but Jesus says, keep believing. Look at verse 37. And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James, and John, the brother of James. Something big happened here. This is the first occurrence of Jesus refining his disciples down to Simon Peter, James, and John. This trio gets to see things others do not. In Mark's Gospel, this will happen 2 more times, at the Transfiguration and Gethsemane. Why these 3? Mark doesn't say, but they are 3 of the 4 first disciples, and go on to have leadership roles in the early church. On to verse 38. They came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. Based on the state of things when they arrived at Jairus' house, clearly, the little girl had died. They were openly mourning her. Look at verses 39 and 40. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside, and took the child's father and mother, and those who were with him, and went in where the child was. So Jesus, who has just arrived, tells the people who were with the girl when she died that she isn't dead, but is asleep. What an odd thing to say. Our options are either that everyone else is wrong and the girl is still alive, or that Jesus is indicating that she'll be waking up again soon. It's worth noting that the New Testament refers to dead people as being asleep many times. What was the reaction to this good news from Jesus? The people laughed at him. They knew death when they saw it. He just arrived. What did he know? And why is he giving false hope to the parents in this hopeless situation? Jesus barred everyone from the house except the girl's parents and his 3 disciples. This is a consistent theme in Mark's Gospel. Those who are prepared to receive a revelation will, but those who are not are left outside. Let those with ears to hear, hear. Look at verse 41. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." Jesus took her hand. Jairus asked him to lay hands on her, and he spoke to her in Aramaic, which Mark kindly translated into Greek, and now we read it in English. Little girl, arise. Arise is an imperative, a command. It means, get up. Look at verse 42. And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. When did she get up? Immediately. There's another use of Mark's favorite word. So what? It wasn't a process of healing or slowly coming back. It was an instantaneous restoration of life. The girl who died was alive and on her feet. She got up and started walking. Mark tells us she was 12 years old. Why tell us that? Jairus said his little daughter was dying. We didn't know how little. Now, she's walking, which is no surprise, because we're told this wasn't a baby, but a 12-year-old. And they were amazed. When? Immediately. Who was amazed? The 5 witnesses to the resurrection of this girl, her mother and father, Peter, James, and John. Because that's who was in the house. Finally, verse 43. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. Jesus charged them to keep the resurrection of Jairus' daughter a secret. First, how could that work? A bunch of people saw that she had died. Well, Jesus told the crowd that she wasn't dead, but asleep. They could simply say, "It looks like Jesus was right, and all of you were wrong." But more importantly, why keep it a secret? Do you remember how the story began? As soon as Jesus arrived on the western shore that morning, there was a great crowd surrounding him. When he came to the house, a great crowd followed. How many would flock to Jesus if people heard that he could raise the dead? The crowds are almost paralyzing as it is. Jesus has a mission, and that mission isn't primarily healthcare and resurrection of the dead. So he tells them to keep it to themselves. He also told them to feed her. Why does that matter? He's telling them to get back to living. Treat her normally. She's fully well and should be treated as such. Much has been made of the fact that Jesus delayed his arrival at Jairus' house by stopping to heal the woman he met along the way. We'll look at her story in our next video. But what can we learn from that delay? It must have been excruciating for Jairus to stand there while Jesus was distracted by this woman. But, in hindsight, the delay made no difference. Whenever Jesus arrived, the girl would have gotten up and gone back to the business of living. So what? We all have a sense of timing, of how things should happen. But God and Jesus are not on our schedule. We often fear what might happen or what might not happen. But remember what Jesus told Jairus, "Fear not, only believe." In our next video, we go back to a grown woman with a deep need. Thank you for watching So What Scripture. Please subscribe to the channel and share this video.